Smoke filled the sky as burning metal rained from the heavens. The alien city, once proud, carved into the sides of shining cliffs, now cracked apart like dry bone. Ash choked the air, and the few survivors moved like ghosts through the rubble. Among them, something crawled slowly, painfully, leaving a green trail of blood behind. Her name was Valari, a warrior of the Tal Rin race. She had led her people's finest into battle, believing the shield wall would hold. It didn't. The enemy came not from above, but from within, a betrayal wrapped in silence and fire. Her wings, once the symbol of honor, were now shattered. Steel and twisted bone, she couldn't feel her legs. Couldn't stand. The nanofiber mesh of her armor flickered uselessly as it tried to restart her spinal link. Her breathing was shallow. Yet she pulled herself forward, inch by inch, her clawed fingers scraping over the broken floor. Somewhere, there had to be a place not on fire. Somewhere someone had to be alive. Valari's cums were dead. The only thing she heard was her own breath and the distant hum of enemy drones scanning the ruins. They moved like vultures, scanning corpses, vaporizing the wounded. She pressed herself under a broken hull when one hovered above her. Her body shook, but her hand remained still. The drone passed without noticing her. She waited. Minutes, then more. When silence returned, she crawled again. Her once radiant hair now clung to her face, soaked in sweat and ash. Her armor buzzed one last time before going fully dark. She was alone, and soon she would die, but fate had strange plans. Outside the alien city ruins, a small human outpost sat hidden beneath the mountain's shadow. It was not military, just engineers and mechanics salvaging old war machines for parts. They were told to stay out of alien wars, stay quiet, stay invisible. But one of them didn't listen. He was called Jace, just a mechanic, a nobody. But he had a habit of looking where others didn't. While collecting old drone parts near the cliffs, his scanner beeped. Weak life signs, not human, not a signal he should follow. But something in him twitched, a feeling he couldn't ignore. He moved through the rubble, careful not to make noise. His boots stepped over burnt metal and half-melted bones. Then he saw her. At first, he thought she was dead. But her eyes opened, glowing, fierce, even in pain. They locked onto him with a warning, not a plea. She tried to lift her arm, but collapsed. Jace raised his hand slowly, showing he had no weapons. He wasn't a soldier. He didn't speak her language. But he could see the broken wings, the blood, the cracked armor. He made a decision without thinking. He lifted her gently, even as she hissed in pain. Then he carried her back, one step at a time. The others at the outpost panicked when they saw her. "She's one of them," someone shouted. "Leave her outside." But Jace didn't listen. He cleared a workbench and placed her down carefully. Her blood stained the floor. Her wings scraped against metal. She looked like death, but there was something in her eyes. Something unbroken. He worked fast. He didn't have alien medicine. He only had tools, welders, cables, and old tech from the last war. But he had hands that knew how to fix broken things. He cleaned her wounds, sealed what he could. He didn't know what she needed. So he guessed and hoped. The outpost leader warned him. "If she dies here, we all hang. You want to risk it for some winged stranger?" But Jace didn't care. He saw what no one else did. She had tried to crawl toward hope. He wasn't about to let that go to waste. Valari drifted in and out of consciousness. In her dreams, she saw fire, heard screams. But there was also a new sound, a human voice. Calm, careful. She opened her eyes again to find him staring at her, adjusting wires along her back. He wasn't afraid. He didn't flinch. He was trying to help. She tried to speak but choked. Her language twisted through a broken translator. Jace just smiled and handed her a tube of water. It was warm, dirty, but she drank it like it was life itself. When she finished, he tapped her armor with a screwdriver, then nodded. "Let's see what we can fix," he whispered. Outside, the drones returned. The sky flashed red as scanners swept the valley again. The outpost dimmed its lights. Silence returned. But inside the small garage, something new began to glow. A pulse, a signal. The first flicker of power in Valari's backplate. Her wings twitched slightly. Jace watched in awe. "You're not done yet, are you?" he asked softly. She gave him a faint nod. Her eyes held no tears. Only fire, deep underground, the remnants of war slept. But in a quiet corner of a mechanic's shop, a broken alien warrior began to rise again. Asterisk Jace didn't sleep for 2 nights straight. He had spread out every tool, every old part, every circuit chip from 100 different machines across the garage floor. He didn't know alien tech, but he understood broken things. And she was broken in ways no manual could explain. Valari lay silent on a repurposed med table. Her eyes followed him as he worked. She didn't trust him yet, but she didn't stop him either. Her body was covered in armor cracks, her skin marked with burns, but her wings, those torn, black metal wings, were the worst. The internal servos had fused. Feathers made of carbon-shielded blades were melted together. Power conduits were destroyed. Her central spine connector was offline. It would take a miracle to rebuild what she once had. But Jace wasn't looking for miracles. He just kept working. She finally spoke in a low voice. Her translator crackled, producing broken words. "You fix wings?" Jace paused. He wiped his hands and looked her in the eye. "I don't know if I can, but I'll try." She stared for a long moment, then gave a tiny nod. Outside, the other engineers kept their distance. They whispered behind Jace's back. They called her a war machine, a threat, a ticking bomb. Some wanted to report her to Central Command. But no one dared step into the garage. Jace had drawn a clear line. Valari didn't speak again for hours, but she watched everything. The way Jace handled tools. The way he treated her body like a puzzle, not a threat. He didn't flinch at her alien design. He didn't gag at her green blood. He focused. Like a smith forging something sacred, she remembered her old wings. They had been her pride. Forged by her mother's hands on the burning moon of Kithar. Each blade was a song. Each movement a poem of the skies. Now they were ruined. But this human, he handled the broken feathers like they still mattered. Jace built a frame first. It wasn't elegant. He scavenged parts from an old survey drone, reinforced it with spinal links from a mining loader. The structure was heavier than before, but strong. He attached it to a powered brace that would anchor across her back and shoulder blades. When he first tested the wing movements, the motors whined too loud. He fixed that. Then the feathers failed to respond. He rewired them. He made mistakes, burned a fuse, cursed under his breath, but never gave up. Valari watched him in silence, surprised by his determination. One night, a noise startled them. A bang on the garage door. Armed scouts had arrived. Not from Central Command, but outsider scavengers looking to trade or steal. Jace covered Valari with a tarp and stepped outside. "We're closed," he said coldly. The scavengers didn't like his tone. One stepped forward with a grin. "Heard you're hiding something interesting." "Maybe alien." Jace didn't answer. He just raised his welding torch. The message was clear. The scavengers left, but they would be back. Jace reinforced the garage entrance after that. Welded steel plates across weak spots. Set motion alarms. Valari noticed. "You protect me," she said with difficulty. "Why?" Jace just shrugged. "Because someone should." Then he returned to work. Days passed. Valari began regaining control of her upper limbs. She started helping, handing tools, testing her wing servos, offering nods of approval when something felt right. She wasn't just a patient anymore. She was becoming his partner in the rebuild. Her voice grew steadier. The translator sensed. Better. She told Jace pieces of her story about the ambush, the betrayal from her own command, the burning of her squad, the crawl through ruins. She didn't cry, but her voice carried the weight of 1,000 dead comrades. Jace listened quietly. He didn't interrupt. He just handed her a newly molded servo and said, "Let's make sure they didn't die for nothing." Valari nodded. Something inside her shifted that day. Trust, maybe even respect. When the wings were finally attached, Valari stood with help. The power core hummed. Lights blinked alive, motors engaged. The wings twitched, then unfolded halfway, not perfect, but enough to lift her again one day. Her eyes gleamed with fire. The moment didn't last. A red flash lit the garage as sensors picked up an incoming signal. Not scavengers this time, something worse. A Tal'Rin warship. Her people, but not her allies. The same faction that betrayed her. They were coming. Jace looked at her. "If they find you here," Valari finished his sentence, "they'll burn everything." She looked at her wings, at him, at the tools. She clenched her jaw. "Then we don't let them find me." Jace nodded. It was no longer just about fixing her. It was about giving her the sky back. Valari stood on shaking legs. The mechanical wings extended halfway before trembling under their own weight. Jace caught her before she collapsed again. Her body wasn't ready, but her mind was burning. She had no time left. The enemy ship would land by morning. She leaned against the wall as Jace adjusted the shoulder locks. Sparks flickered from the servos. Her body armor still bore deep cracks, but her eyes were sharp and clear. "If they track my signal, your whole outpost dies," she said flatly. Jace nodded. "Then we give them something else to find." Together, they began moving equipment, old scrap metal, signal jammers, dummy transmitters. Jace had worked with rebels before. He knew how to trick scanners. While Valari set decoys across the cliffs, he rigged the garage to emit a false life signal. One strong enough to draw fire away from them. Her legs ached. Each step left pain burning up her spine. But she didn't stop. Jace offered her a makeshift cane, fashioned from an old drone leg. She accepted it with a nod. For a moment, she looked almost regal again. A warrior who refused to kneel. Night fell fast. From the top of the hill, they saw the alien ship descend like a burning dagger, black and massive. The Tal'Rin symbol was scratched across its hull, an eagle swallowing fire. Valari gritted her teeth. "They were once my family," she whispered. "Now they're executioners." Jace handed her a small control unit. "This triggers the decoys. You lead them away. I'll cover your exit." She shook her head. "No. I don't run. Not anymore." He stared at her. "You can't fight like this." She smiled bitterly. "Watch me." She stepped forward as the wind picked up. Her wings opened again, this time wider. The motors whined, but held. Sparks danced across the dark feathers. She reached toward the sky, and for one terrifying second, her feet lifted. An inch off the ground, then she crashed back down, hard. Jace rushed to her, but she pushed him away. "Again," she growled. "They took the sky from me. I take it back or I die trying." He knelt beside her. "We'll make the wings lighter. Strip out the dead weight. Give you speed, not strength." She nodded. They worked through the night, cutting pieces, rerouting cables, replacing steel with carbon fiber from a mining drill's filament casing. It wasn't elegant, but it worked. The wings began to respond faster, sleeker, lighter. She tested again. This time, she hovered 2 feet before dropping. Her smile was fierce, not joyful, just determined. Jace tightened the final screws into her spinal brace. "That's it. You've got one good lift, maybe two. After that, the power core overheats. Valari nodded. One is all I need. At dawn, the alien squadron deployed. Black armored soldiers swept through the ruins, scanning every corner. Their language buzzed through the comms like a hive. Drones flew overhead, searching for her biosignature. They didn't know she was already watching from above. Jace activated the decoys. The garage lit up with false signals. The enemy moved toward it like ants to sugar. Valari watched them from the canyon ledge. Her wings stretched behind her, flexing. With quiet power. She whispered, "For my fallen." Then she jumped. The sky roared as her wings caught the air. Not perfectly, not gracefully, but enough. She soared in a jagged arc, heading straight for the lead drone. The soldiers didn't see her until it was too late. She dropped like a meteor, her blade arm piercing the drone's core before it could. Fire! The explosion lit the valley. Chaos broke out below. Jace triggered a second decoy, drawing enemy fire to a false heat signature. Valari darted between ruined towers, landing hard, slashing, then leaping again. Her body screamed in pain, but her wings kept moving. The tall Rin commander shouted orders. "She's alive! Capture her!" But Valari didn't plan to be caught. She led them deeper into the ruins, where the cliffs narrowed and the sky turned red. One wrong step would drop them into the abyss. She didn't flinch. Jace watched from a distance, breath tight. He couldn't fight beside her, but he could make sure her path stayed clear. He rerouted power to a collapsed railgun buried in the canyon wall. One shot was all he needed. When the commander stepped into range, he fired. The blast tore through. Rock and metal, the commander flew backward, armor crushed. Valari turned at the sound, eyes locking with Jace's far above. She gave him a nod. He had just saved her life. Again, the enemy faltered, some fled, others were cut down. When it ended, Valari dropped to her knees. Her wings sparked wildly. One servo caught fire. She ripped it off without blinking. The rest held, just barely. Jace reached her moments later. Her face was pale, her legs numb, but her eyes were burning with life. "I flew," she said simply. He smiled. "You did more than fly. You won." She leaned against him as the sun rose. Smoke drifted across the ruins, but she was still standing. Because of him, because of what they built together. And the sky once stolen was hers again. Valari's body gave out as soon as they returned to the workshop. The rebuilt wings were still attached, but barely. Sparks flicked from the joints. The power cell was overheated and cracked. Her skin had split in several places where the armor pressed too tightly. But she didn't complain. She only asked one question. "Did they follow?" Jace shook his head. "They're gone for now." Then he carried her inside and laid her on the bench like before. But this time, it wasn't desperation. It was survival. The difference mattered. He worked quietly. She watched him, too tired to speak. Every movement of her chest was shallow. Her body trembled under the stress. Her nerves had pushed beyond what they were meant to take. Jace could see it in her eyes. She wasn't healing. She was holding on by will alone. He adjusted her back brace and connected a cooling coil to the wing base. The heat hissed away slowly. "You need rest," he said. Valari gave a small nod, then closed her eyes. Her hands twitched now and then. Warrior reflexes that didn't stop just because the war had. Outside, the outpost was tense. Some of the workers had packed and left. The attack confirmed their worst fears. Harboring an alien, even one wounded, meant death if the wrong patrol found out. Jace didn't argue with those who left. He just returned to her side. When she woke, it was midnight. The garage was dark, except for a dim blue light. Jace sat beside her, holding a welding torch he hadn't lit. "They'll come back," she said. "The Tal'Rin never leave a target alive." Jace stared at the wall. Then we better make sure you're ready next time. She looked down at her legs. They didn't move. What if I can't fight again? She asked. Jace leaned forward. Then I'll fight for both of us. She gave a bitter smile. You're not a soldier, he replied quietly. Neither were you. Once, that silence hung between them for a while. Then Valari spoke. There's something. I didn't tell you, my wings, they weren't just for flight. They were bonded to my command code, tactical control. Battle override. If the wrong hands get them, they can control entire strike fleets. Jace blinked. You're telling me your back is a command key? She nodded slowly. Half of it. The other half was destroyed in the ambush. That's why they want me. Alive. To complete the system. He stood and walked to the bench, pulling out a handheld scanner. Why didn't you tell me sooner? He asked. Because I didn't trust you, she answered. Now I do. Jace scanned her wing core. The reading spiked. Deep inside, something ancient and locked pulsed faintly. He stared at the data. This tech is decades ahead of anything I've seen, maybe more, Valari nodded. It was forbidden. My mother broke law to give it to me. It made me a leader. But it also made me a target. Jace set the scanner down. Then we keep it safe. No one gets it. Not even your people. Valari sat up slowly. That won't stop them. They'll send more, bigger ships, with full command squads. They'll tear this mountain apart to find me. Jace stared at the floor. Then we move before they get. Here. He pointed to a map on the wall. Old rebel tunnels run under the cliffs. If we can get to the Skyhook station, we might reach orbit. Find someone who can shut that code down for good. Valari shook her head. I can't walk. Jace tapped the frame of her wings. Then we fly. She raised an eyebrow. These wings won't last 10 more minutes airborne. He smiled. Then we build new ones. For the next 3 days, the garage became a forge again. This time, Valari helped more. She sat upright, guided the designs, explained how the original Tau Rin flight systems were constructed. Jace listened, learned, and modified everything to match what he had access to. Together they built a lighter frame using aerospace alloys from a crashed human fighter. He reinforced the shoulder joints with hydraulic pistons meant for industrial loaders. The wings grew. Sleeker, deadlier, smarter. Less like an angel's and more like a machine built for one last mission. By the 4th night, the wings were ready. Not perfect, but enough. Jace helped Valari into the harness. Every strap was tightened with care. Every bolt locked into place. Her body still ached, but the moment the new wings hummed to life, her eyes lit up again. Jace watched her rise slowly above the floor. Just a few feet. But balanced, controlled, strong. She hovered silently, then landed without a crash. Feels different, she said. Better, Jace replied. Now let's get you off this rock before they burn it down. She reached toward him, her hand resting briefly on his arm. You gave me flight. But more than that, you gave me a reason to fight again. Jace didn't speak. He only handed her the data drive with the command key logs. We finish what they started. And then we bury it. The final journey had begun. The hatch groaned as Jace pulled it open. The rebel tunnel beneath the workshop had not seen light in over 10 years. Dust exploded into the air, thick and bitter. Valari coughed as she stepped through, wings folded tight against her back. The shaft descended steeply into the rock. Old power lines hung loose from the ceiling. Faded warnings in 3 languages flashed as Jace connected a portable battery to the wall panel. Emergency lights flickered to life, casting a red hue across the tunnel. We follow this path for 10 miles, he said. Then we reached the station shaft. Valari adjusted the wing harness. Her legs still refused to respond. Jace had rigged a hover brace beneath her lower armor. It allowed her to float above the ground while conserving wing power. She hated it, but she accepted it. Pride wouldn't help if they got caught. Their steps echoed. Silence became a third companion. The tunnels twisted like a buried serpent. Several times they passed old barricades, rusted gates welded shut. During some forgotten skirmish, Jace cut through them using a plasma torch. Vilari kept watch, blades unsheathed. An hour into the descent, the tremors began. At first faint, then stronger. Vilari placed her hand on the wall. "They're scanning the mountain," she whispered. "Depth charges, looking for heat signatures." Jace nodded. "We stay cold. We stay quiet." They crossed a broken bridge, where the tunnel split above an underground chasm. Jace tied a cable to a steel post and helped Vilari across. She said nothing, but her hand gripped as harder than expected. Below them, something mechanical stirred in the dark. At the fourth checkpoint, they found a broken console still blinking. Jace powered it with his core and read the display. "Autoguns ahead," he said. "Still active. Rebel systems must have stayed running on backup cells." Vilari stepped beside him. "Then we shut them down. Or we don't leave alive." She moved ahead first, guiding him to a crawl space that bypassed the main door. Her wings folded unnaturally tight. The space was narrow. Sharp metal sliced her arm, but she didn't slow. Jace followed behind, dragging his tool pack with one hand and gripping the floor with the other. They reached the mainframe chamber. The defense AI was still humming, unaware of their presence. Vilari stared at the interface. "This code's ancient. Human rebel encryption. I need a moment." Jace moved to cover her as she pulled a cord from her gauntlet and linked it to the terminal. Lines of alien glyphs ran across the screen. Vilari's eyes scanned quickly. Her fingers tapped with precision, then she froze. "There's a new input," she said. "Someone else is inside this system." Jace paled. "You mean we're not alone?" Before she could answer, alarms blared. A cold mechanical voice spoke. "Intruder detected. Sector breach in progress." Lights turned crimson. Doors slammed shut. From the side corridors, metal shapes emerged. Patrol bots. Old models, still deadly. Their arms shifted into rifles. Jace yanked Vilari behind a console as the first shots rang out. Sparks exploded. He pulled a shock grenade from his belt and tossed it over the railing. The explosion disabled two bots. Vilari spun around the console, wings flaring, and sliced the head off the third with a single motion. The room turned silent again. Jace panted. Vilari's arm was bleeding. He tied it with a strip from his jacket. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded. "I've been through worse." She turned back to the terminal and finished the override. The defense grid shut down. With a fading hum, they moved on, faster this time. No more breaks, no more whispers. Each step was urgent. Every noise could be a trap. But Vilari's face was calm, steady, determined. Jace followed her lead, despite the pounding in his chest. When they reached the last access door, they found a motion-triggered mine wired to the frame. Jace disarmed it with shaking hands. One wrong move would have erased them both. He sighed with relief. Vilari simply opened the door and flew ahead. Beyond the tunnel, the air changed. It smelled cleaner, sharper. A breeze flowed through a long shaft. Light shone from the top. They had reached the Skyhook's base lift. Vilari stared up in silence. "That leads to orbit," Jace said. To the last launch pad still functional, she stepped forward. Her wings buzzed faintly. Her legs floated an inch off the ground. Her face tilted up toward the light. "Then we don't stop now," she said. "We fly together." To the end, Jace placed the final battery into the lift controls. The gears groaned as the platform rose. Above them, the sky waited. So did danger. But also answers. And maybe peace. Asterisk, the Skyhook's lift platform rattled as it rose through the narrow shaft. Every bolt groaned. Every motor vibrated. Dust and rust poured down from above. Jace kept one hand on the railing while the other gripped his toolkit. Tight, Valari stood beside him, wings open, but still. Her face looked calm, but her fingers tapped against her thigh with silent tension. The shaft opened gradually to a glass-lined cylinder. Outside, the mountain curved away into shadow. Above them, the skyhook tower stretched toward the stratosphere, its rails humming with ancient power. Valari stared upward. "This was once built to connect peace between our worlds," she said. "Now we ride it toward another war." Jace checked the energy reading. 2 minutes until we reach the launch platform. After that, we hope the old station's comms still work. Valari didn't respond. Her eyes narrowed. "They're already here," she said. Jace followed her gaze. At the top of the tower, black shapes were forming. Dropships, the Talrin, had found them again. The comm system crackled to life as a voice spoke in their tongue. Valari's translator buzzed softly. "Surrender the command key. You will not be harmed," she smirked. "Liars." The message repeated, colder. "This is your final warning." Valari stepped forward. "Then let it be final." The lift halted at the skyhook summit. The wind hit them instantly. Cold and sharp. The landing pad stretched wide, half covered in old ships and broken cargo crates. A half-crushed satellite dish sparked at the edge. Above them, the dropships circled slowly. Jace and Valari ran for the station tower. The metal floor shook as the first dropship opened fire. Bullets tore through the platform. Valari spun mid-air and activated her wing thrusters, rising over the blast wave. Her blades cut through a support beam, sending debris crashing into the gunfire. Jace ducked into the control room, working fast. Screens flickered to life. He connected the data drive. The interface booted up with a soft glow. Valari burst in moments later, her armor scorched. "They're closing in," Jace kept typing. "Almost there. I just need a signal relay." The building shook. A missile exploded nearby. Part of the ceiling collapsed. Valari raised her wings to shield him from falling steel. Sparks flew as her servos groaned. She didn't flinch. "Finish it," she shouted. Jace found the uplink. He routed power to the last working transmitter. A blue beacon lit up above the tower. The Talrin command codes were transmitted corrupted, rewritten, and locked. Valari's part of the key now meant nothing to the enemy. The voice returned. "On the come, you've made a grave mistake." Valari responded clearly. "You made it first, I ended it." The enemy responded with fire. Dropships opened up again. Valari rose through the air, faster now, lighter than before. Her wings sang like sharpened blades. She flew straight into the center ship. The impact split the hull. Fire and metal screamed across the sky. She dove through the wreckage and landed hard beside Jace. He stared at her. "That was insane." She smiled faintly. "That was freedom." Then the platform cracked. One of the damaged support struts gave way. The entire tower tilted slightly. Alarms screamed. Jace looked up. "We can't stay here. The whole thing is going down." Valari grabbed him with one arm and lifted off. The added weight strained her flight path. Her engines burned too hot, but she didn't let go. She pulled them toward a maintenance chute on the side of the station. Jace reached out and grabbed the edge. He pulled them both inside. They tumbled down a sloped corridor until they hit the emergency ladder. Valari coughed, her face bruised. "You all right?" Jace asked. She nodded. "More than all right. The command link is dead. I'm no longer a weapon. I'm just a soldier now." Jace helped her up. They looked back through a shattered window. The Talrin dropships had begun to retreat. Their mission was over. Their prize lost. Valari had won not by killing, but by breaking their hold on her identity. Together, they walked deeper into the station's lower deck. The emergency shuttle waited below, small, cramped, but space-worthy. Jace began prepping the engine. Valari sat in the corner, wings folded, eyes closed. For the first time, she looked at peace. The stars were within reach. The emergency shuttle shuddered as it lifted from the platform. Below, the skyhook tower collapsed in slow motion, its supports folding like ancient bones. Fire and dust spiraled upward into the thinning air. From orbit, it would look like a dying beast exhaling one last breath. Inside the shuttle, Jace adjusted the control sticks with steady hands. The ship groaned, but climbed. Valari sat beside him, strapped into a worn seat. Her armor was cracked, her face bruised. But her eyes watched the stars ahead like they were calling her name. The cum stayed silent. No more threats, no more orders. Just the hum of the ship and the stars growing larger. Jace glanced at the navigation screen. We'll reach the Terran listening post in 30 minutes. From there, we can request asylum. Maybe even sanctuary. Valari didn't speak at first. Her hand hovered over her wings control panel. Then she leaned back and let out a long breath. I thought I would die on that mountain, buried in silence. But you gave me something more than survival. You gave me a reason to fight again. Jace kept his eyes on the stars. I didn't do it for glory. Or for Earth. I just saw someone broken. And I fix broken things. Valari smiled faintly. Then I must be the hardest thing you've ever fixed. He grinned. You weren't easy. The shuttle broke through the last layer of upper atmosphere. Space greeted them with silence. Debris from the battle floated past. One of the Talrin dropships tumbled in the void, its engines dark. The war was not over, but this fight was. Valari reached into a side compartment and pulled out the command core, the last piece of the original wing system. She handed it to Jace. This holds the last trace of my old code. I want you to destroy it. He took it without a word and crushed it between the fusion clamps. Tiny sparks scattered across the floor. The code that once controlled fleets and ruined lives now drifted as dust. Valari closed her eyes. Now I am truly free. The shuttle docked with the Terran station silently. Medics arrived. Soldiers stepped forward. Jace raised his hands. We're not enemies. Valari stepped beside him. We are survivors. That should be enough. The station crew looked at each other. Then lowered their weapons. Valari was taken to a medical bay. Jace followed, refusing to leave her side. Repairs began on her spine. Her legs might move again, or they might not. But the wings remained. Stronger than before. Days passed. Then weeks. Reports of her actions spread. Some called her a traitor, others a hero. But Valari didn't care about either. She spent her time in the station hangar, walking slowly between repair bays, watching ships come and go. Jace returned with a surprise one morning. A new wing harness, sleek, foldable, built from Terran and Talrin tech combined. Valari's eyes widened. You built another one. He shrugged. Had to do something while waiting for you to get bored. She stepped into the suit. The wings clicked into place. Lighter than before. Sharper. When she tested them, the hangar lights shimmered from the feather-like blades. She hovered above the floor, then landed. Perfectly balanced. Jace stepped forward. You don't have to run anymore. But if you ever want to fly again, you won't have to do it alone. Valari looked at him for a long moment. Then extended one wing around his shoulder and pulled him close. I don't fly alone anymore, she said softly. The stars beyond the station sparkled with quiet promise. No longer a battlefield, but a sky reborn. And in its heart, an alien. Warrior and the human who gave her wings. Together, they soared into the light. Asterisk.